What's going on, everybody? And thanks again for joining us here on Expanded Perspectives with me, Cam Hale, and me amigo over here, Mr. Kyle Filson.
How's it going out there, everybody? We're glad you could join us.
Philly, how have things been going, my friend?
It's been good, man. It's been really busy with school starting back up and baseball and everything. But yeah, and my own personal job. It's been really, really busy.
Seemed like the Brood were having fun yesterday, man.
Yeah,
They had a blast.
Yeah, I mean, they lost the game, but doesn't seem to affect them.
No, they
just
don't
like
care.
playing.
They don't care. It's funny to watch the little fellas on the big field now.
Yeah, they're moving up, so now
Man.
the base paths are longer. The pitching mound is farther away, so yeah.
It's so funny.
I told them, you got to run twice as fast now to get safe, you know what I mean?
Well, what was funny is what you and I discussed is folks, what we're talking about is the, you know, when they're younger, they play on a much, much smaller baseball field. Now they're moved up to an older age bracket, to an older field. What those little kids used to be able to hit and get a pretty good shot, would knock it out into the grass. Well, now it just barely even leaves the infield. So they're running, they're like, what they're used to getting doubles out of, they're barely getting to first base now.
Well, exactly. It is. It's the exact same distance as getting a double because the base paths used to be 30 feet apart. Now it's 60, so.
It's just funny. I get the biggest kick out of watching those little ones play and run around and knock the ball. And some of them play like crazy. Like some of them lay out. Now, whether or not they even touch the ball, but they lay out. They dive for it, try to knock it down with their glove. I love it, man. It makes me laugh.
Yeah.
Hey, Philly, I was on Ancient Origins, and this made me think about, well, it was something that we could have used in the past, and I'm sure some of our listeners could have used in the past also. I don't know if you've seen this, but they have found a 1,000-year-old Middle Eastern cookbook, recipe book.
Really?
All right, and it claims to have none other than the ultimate hangover cure in it.
Wow. No, I did not see that. And it has other food recipes as well?
Now, this is a book, you know what, I'm seriously thinking that I may have to get this book. I mean, it's...
Oh, you can buy a copy of it?
Yeah, you can get copies of it now, I believe. Yeah.
Right on. I can make myself a crock pot recipe book.
That's right. Well, what it is, okay, it was written nearly 1,000 years ago, and I'm not even going to try to butcher the name of it, but it stands for the Book of Cookery, and it was written by a man named Ibn Sayyar al-Warraq, and it's the most comprehensive work of its kind, they say. It says it includes more than 600 recipes for culinary and medicinal dishes, and it also has the well-known ancient Middle Eastern hangover cure.
Right, roasted dodo bird and a whole bunch of extinct creatures.
Yeah, I don't think that's in there. But there's also something else. Of course, it says it has dishes for curing a range of health problems, and it has ingredients in it for enhancing sexual performance.
Of course, you can't have a recipe book without that.
Right. Now, it says very little is known about the author, except that he passed away in 961 A.D., and that he was commissioned to write a cookbook for the lords and the dignitaries of the time. It says many of the recipes are thought to have been acquired from much earlier writings and may even be much older than 1,000 years.
Really?
Yeah, which would be fun to be able to, if you had the stuff, I'm sure, to make today, to know that that's what they were eating back then.
What region of the world is this in?
This is actually, it's mostly in northern Iraq.
Okay.
Now it says
that
the book,
Mesopotamia, I mean, that's where all that area is, right?
Yeah. It says that the book consists of five chapters about kitchen utensils, spices, and the 8 types of tastes, and the causes of spoiled food, and the remedies for burned food. Then it also holds 79 chapters of just recipes. Then 20 chapters about cooking and dining etiquette, and 25 chapters on the medicinal properties of food, including what they describe as the ultimate hangover cure.
Now, this recipe book is over 1,000 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the recipes come from further back than that.
They believe it does. They believe it comes from, that a lot of this comes from much, much older. It's still, all the recipes are still passed on the way we get them today.
Yeah, but where it's at is what interests me. Right there in the Tigris-Euphrates Valley, there, Mesopotamia. So what you're telling me is these are ancient Anunnaki recipes. Is there anything that describes alien food, alien spices?
Not in this article, but there's a chance it could. Maybe that's why it's the whole thing with the hangover. Maybe this is an ancient Anunnaki hangover cure is what this is.
Here's my Anunnaki artichoke dip I'm making for the next party we have.
That's what I'm screaming. That's exactly what. Well, it says the hangover cure is just a meat, a chickpea, and a vegetable stew with an addition of a special ingredient known as kask, a fermented yogurt, milk, and whey product, which is thought, they said, to be the key. to this.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah, not so much, right? It also tells everybody, listen, it says the book advises you to eat cabbage prior to drinking alcohol. That sounds horrible. And eating snacks between drinks to slow down its effects, and sipping on water the following day before consuming the stew.
Really?
And it's all cooked, it's all cooked in the same way. And then, of course, they get into a recipe that is said to invigorate coitus. Which this says it's just for men, and I'm not even going to give you these recipes, folks. You need to go out and buy the book, but you can also go to, like I said, you can go to Ancient Origins and look around it. But it's something that I think I'm going to have to look into. I mean, I think it would be fun to cook something.
It would be pretty neat
to
even if you just made chocolate chip cookies or something, to say, well, this is a recipe from a couple thousand years ago, right? That would be kind of interesting to see what the recipes were.
For sure.
Yeah. Did you see this Stephen Hawking has come out now with some more dreadful news that the CERN, you're familiar with CERN,
yes,
right? And the Large Hadron Collider.
Yes.
He's predicting, he's got a new book coming out called Starmus, which is due out next month. And in the preface, he talks about that discovering this Higgs boson could actually destroy the entire universe. Now, this Higgs boson is also known as the God particle. That's what they're called. That's what they're trying to look at. They're trying to look at the fundamentals, building blocks of everything. And it's super subatomic particles is what they're looking for. Now, he stresses in this book that the eventuality is extremely unlikely, but the possibility does exist that should the particle become unstable at high energy levels, it could collapse and the whole of space and time could be destroyed. Now, I don't know how you would know that, though, right? The Higgs, he goes on to say the Higgs potential has the worrisome feature that it might become mega or metastable at energies above 100 giga-electron volts. If you're familiar with that. I'm like, and it says that, or if you're familiar with that. Who on earth is familiar with that?
Mega and meta. Yeah. I love those already,
right,
but when you're getting into this mega voltage, what was it?
Giga-electron volts.
Man, that just sounds super badass.
Right? So, or like 100, and it looks like the letter B and N. That's what that B and N stands for, giga-electron volts, I guess.
That sounds like the name for a good band.
Right? And it's
Giga and the electron volts.
Yeah, he goes on to say that this could mean that the universe could undergo catastrophic vacuum decay, with a bubble of the true vacuum expanding at the speed of light. To me, he's one of those guys, look, I know he's really smart, but it seems like some of these people just throw out really complicated things like that because no one's going to check them because you're like, well, that sounds super smart, so it must be true. Or is it just made up? Here's another thing. Is he really that smart? I mean, he's hooked up to a computer. The computer-like voice, I mean, it's just like Google, having access to Google all the time. Well, I can't really pawn that off as me being that intelligent. Can you? I mean,
I tell you what, man.
And I'm not making fun of him. I'm just saying, it does kind of seem that way.
I don't want to think about it. I really don't. But I don't like thinking about that stuff. I like thinking about all the fun stuff. I don't want to know about what if they discover a particle that if they overheat it, it's going to cause everything that we know to collapse in upon itself.
Yeah, but isn't this the same stuff as when they were developing the atomic bomb? They thought it might cause a chain reaction in the whole
around the world.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean,
yes.
I don't know. That's exactly what it seems like to me. Because certainly if the scientists, which, nuclear physicists there at CERN, if they really thought this was a possibility, I don't think they would be trying to do it. Do you?
Yeah, I wouldn't think that Stephen Hawking was the first person to pick up on that.
No.
If it was that dangerous. I mean, I'm saying that if it was that, you're telling me he didn't share his findings with anybody else whenever he first found it. It was like, whoa, guys, you need to take a look at this. Here's the mathematical equation that I used. What do you think?
I don't think he has an equation. He's hooked to a computer.
No, it's just the way he speaks.
It's a computer speaking. You can't even hear, you don't hear his real voice.
That's true.
It's like a speaking spell.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean that he's not intelligent just because he sounds like that.
I don't buy it,
man.
I think it's just a computer voice, and he's just pretending that he's really.
You think he's really you think he's like transcendent, man? You think he's really a computer?
Yeah, I think so.
Man, maybe he might be. He may be the first one to really do it.
Maybe
he may be the first guy to really be like into the computer.
I don't like Stephen Hawking. I'll come out with it. I don't like him.
Why not?
I just don't care for the guy.
You just don't.
No, I don't believe him.
You're so mean.
That's not mean. That's just I don't know. You don't care for everybody.
That's
I don't
true.
care for him.
That's true. Well, let me throw this at you.
Sure.
While you're not believing things, we had a listener and friend of the show tweet us a little something out here. And this comes from before it's news. And it is allegedly the ghost of a little girl photographed in a notorious haunted mansion, Lotus Hall. All right. Now, this is a tourist that visited this place. And the tourist's name is Thomas Beavis. He's 21 from Lewisham, it says. And apparently in Wexford is where Lotus Hall is. But he had snapped a photo of just people walking in. And for his mother, apparently, was on a tour with friends. So he took a picture. And next to the front door, there was the curtains are pulled back, and there's just a big glass area right to the right of the front door.
Uh-huh.
And apparently, he didn't see anything at the time, but he said he was actually stunned whenever he went back and looked, because he said he could see the spooky old face of an old woman in the door to the right when you come walking in. And he said, we were all feeling a little edgy from the tour, but when I showed the photo to friends, we were freaked out. All right. Now, if you zoom in on this picture, now it's on there, folks. If you go to beforeitnews.com, it's on there. If you zoom in and you look at it, it almost looks just like reflections is really all the photograph looks like. I mean, I can't tell. Like, I don't know. I'm just going off does it look like there could be ghosts? Yeah, it looks like those could be ghosts. Reflections are, but not inside. I don't know. It just doesn't look real to me.
I don't even know how they spotted it.
No.
I mean, do you, every time you take a photograph of just you in your family events, do you get a magnifying glass and start combing over every square inch? Yeah. And then going back and trying to blow this up or that and try to enhance? I mean, you just look at it for a second and you go, all right, I don't know how they saw it. And then when you look at it, you're right. To me, it just looks like a reflection. I don't think this is a ghost at all.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of history. I won't get into it. There's a lot of history of these stories and of this family that owned this Lotus Hall and all that. But anytime I see that, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it. When I just see these reflections in the glass, and there's probably in the original photo before you're zoomed in on it, there's probably roughly, 25 people in the picture.
Right. Yeah.
And they all
looks like a tour going on.
Yeah, they're all funneling towards the door. It's hard to look. It's it doesn't mean that maybe it's not like the people are dressed the same in the photograph. I don't know.
You can't really see the
reflection.
Dress.
It's hard to tell. Yeah, it could be a jacket. It could be just a shirt and jeans. Man, like I said, I don't know. I have no clue. It's definitely of something. There's definitely a picture of a woman and a picture of a young woman in the glass. That's for sure there. But I don't know. If that's for real, that's creepy as hell, if that's what it is. But I'm with you. How did you spot that right off the bat? Like, I'm looking at the original photo, boom, and I'm like, man, you got to zoom in on it. And maybe that was just what caught their eye, because when I'm looking at it right now and I look at the picture, I'm like, now I see what he was looking at. I'm like, ooh, what is that? But it's only because he showed me before. If you just showed me the picture of this, I would be looking all over like, man, if it wasn't highlighted.
You would never have noticed that.
I probably wouldn't. No.
I know you wouldn't have. No one.
I'm looking, I'm like, because I'm instantly, there's like multi-stories, and I'm looking at all these other windows with the drapes in them. I'm looking across there like, where's it at? I would have never thought to look right there. So I really don't know. But it is an interesting photo, folks. I urge you to go check it out. Take a look, see what you think. But I think there's even a video of it that they punched up on YouTube too. But it's an interesting picture. If nonetheless, it's a very interesting picture. And like I said, if it's real, it's a creepy thing. I hope more comes out about it. I hope they kind of look into it and more comes out about it. But then again, too, why would you Photoshop that?
Who knows why these people do that stuff? Just to troll.
Well, I mean, if it is fake, and I'm not saying it is. I mean, hell, it might be burnt. I mean, it might be as real as can be. But that's another reason. I mean, I'm supporting that it could be real too, because why would somebody go to the trouble to Photoshop two? If you were going to do one, wouldn't you just do one real creepy one, and everybody's like, "Oh, holy man, that thing's crazy"? But you're going to put two in there, you know?
Maybe. Well, maybe he just overthought it. It's like, look, everybody's going to fake one. I'll fake two because that'll throw them off.
Well, it's the same thing as that Patterson Gimlin. I've always thought about too. Is why would you put breasts on it? Why would you go to all the trouble to put breasts on it? I mean, there's just little things like that. That's just not human nature. In nature, we're lazy. In nature, we're like, okay, that's good enough. Right. I've got an old woman face in there. That's good enough. Or I've got a girl in there in this reflection. That's good enough. Why would you go a little bit more? It's like adding
throw you off.
Adding too much sugar to the sweet tea or too much chocolate to the milk. That's what it's like doing. So, yeah, folks, check that out. See what you think. It's a very interesting story. And, Michael, thanks for sending that in, for tweeting it out to us.
Yeah, we'll put show notes linking to all those articles. Did you see that the machine Uprising has already started?
Oh, I knew it. I knew it was coming.
I've been warning you about this for months.
Yes.
Well, it's happened. Did you see the International Space Station started launching satellites without permission? It defies humans.
I did see that. One of our friends and listeners, Beth Arzy, had actually posted something about that.
Oh, yeah?
And that's when I first read it. And I saw, I was like, and that's what she's like, uh-oh. Now things are going.
Right, yeah.
It's doing it all on its own.
Yeah, that's right. The International Space Station has a cannon that launches these tiny CubeSats or
T-shirts. They're shooting T-shirts out to people.
Micro satellites, right, just like when you go to the basketball game or whatever. And it launches these into orbit. Now, most of the time, these launches are triggered by human scientists, either on board or back home on Earth. You push a button, you launch one.
Yeah.
But this week, the International Space Station launched 2 of these CubeSats entirely on its own. Thursday night, it says the ISS commander Steve Swanson was loading blood samples into a freezer when he noticed that the doors on the CubeSat launcher was open. He's like, what the heck? Somebody left this open? He talked to Mission Control down in Houston. He told them what happened, and they confirmed that 2 CubeSats had inadvertently been released. Now, they said this isn't the first time that this has even happened. That NASA shows that 2 other times that CubeSats have been unintentionally launched by the ISS. One happening back in August 23rd. So, of the 12 CubeSats that's been launched off the ISS, and the whole time, over a third of them have been launched automatically by the ISS. Like the computer just decides it wants to shoot them into space, and it just does it.
And this is like supposed to be the best of the best, most advanced stuff that we deal with.
Yeah, so why is it doing that? Why is it just launching? I mean, it's a good thing this isn't some kind of weapon in space that just starts launching nukes because it wants to. Luckily, they're just settled. That's what I think it is.
Skynet's
it's the machine Uprising.
That's right. That's exactly what's going on.
The machines are spying on us.
Okay, it's in it time to run. Is there a virus? Somebody upload a virus? Somebody get a hold of this thing?
Well, that's what I thought, too. Is there any way for somebody here on Earth to hack it? I imagine you could, right, if you were a good enough hacker.
Hack into the space station? That would be awesome.
Zero Cool from, like, that old movie Hackers. You remember that from, like, the late 80s or early 90s?
Yes.
I think that was one of the first movies Angelina Jolie was ever in.
I forgot all about that show.
Yeah, but that's alarming, right? I mean,
it is.
Luckily,
yeah.
It's just CubeSats, which are just little satellites about the size of a Philly cheesesteak sandwich, and they're harmless. But what if we did have something that was automated, like we talk about all the time on this show, that has nuclear threats or even just chemical warfare weapons? And this is my fear: is the machines start malfunctioning and start launching this stuff?
Yeah, that's not cool. That's not good. Well, and obviously we always talk about it could happen. Well, it is happening. It's happening right now. Slight malfunction, a ghost in the machine. There's a little bug or something going on, and it's causing it to launch whenever it feels like. And like you said, what if it was a rocket? What if it was a drone that was programmed to go after somebody?
Right.
What if it was a chemical warfare? Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that you'd like. I don't want that thing. I mean, I don't want that letting go of anything.
Yeah, hopefully they didn't put much, whatever you want to talk about, technology into stopping this thing from automatically going off because it's harmless. Hopefully, if you have something with a weapon on it, you really make sure this isn't going to accidentally go off, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to get a virus. This thing's going to start launching
There's a
stuff.
where you physically have to open the door before it launches. You're like, okay, it all launches automated except that door. And I physically have to open that door.
Hopefully somebody has safeguard. I mean, we even talked about on the last show or two, we talked about accidentally bombs being dropped.
Yes.
I mean, and if it wasn't for the safeguards, they would have detonated.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine you could blow up your own town accidentally.
Yeah. Super sorry. How would you get just a shrug of the shoulders?
Yeah, right.
Oops.
Did you see that flight MH370, which is the missing Malaysian airplane? The hydrophone signal that they were getting from this thing that they thought could have been evidence that it was at the bottom of the ocean or something. It looks like that they figured out that it was probably just an earthquake. It's not this hydrophone that they thought it was. Yeah. When the Malaysian Airlines flight MH370 went missing March 8th, they said a team of Australian oceanographers had an array of super-sensitive undersea microphones deployed along the western and northern coast of the continent. Now, in June, the research team led by Curtin University's Alec Duncan discovered that they had mountains of acoustic data and that it hid a tantalizing anomaly. Now, this peculiar sound was a distinct crashing sound against the normal low rumbling of the deep sea. So they noticed something significant. and they traced the source to the Indian Ocean. Well, then after the crash happened or the plane went missing, he remembered that data and said, man, maybe that's what that was, because I guess they had heard the sound, but they never really linked the two together. And when they went back and started looking, and it turns out that it probably was just an earthquake or a landslide or some kind of volcanic eruption, and that it's not the crash of the missing airplane.
Okay.
So I don't know. It's interesting, though, that, these things go missing.
Yeah.
And then it turns out it's just a normal thing that's going on below the surface of the ocean. It's just a natural event. But I know for weeks now they've been publishing, they found it. They've been getting these signals from the bottom of the sea. That's got to be the missing plane. And turns out that's just not really that. That's not so.
That is such a strange story, man. Like you said, and it's also too because people hold out hope. You want to hold out hope that it's there's something that gives it closure, and it's
well,
just
they didn't
not
know
coming.
what it was. I mean, they just knew they were getting some kind of signal source from the sea, and they thought, well, that's got to be the plane, and it turns out it's not.
Yeah, you just want some closure.
We still don't know where the thing is.
Still don't. Still have
Which
no
is going to lead
clue.
me to another story I'm going to do about some other missing aircraft.
Oh, nice. Well, I got something here I'm going to drop on you. This is again from openminds.tv. And it says UFO sightings are increasing in Queensland, say the researchers.
Okay.
Queensland, Australia. So this is Warren and Chris's neighborhood, and Andrew Shaw. This is his neighborhood down in Australia.
Right.
Now, guys, I have no idea where Queensland exactly is to where they live. I have no idea, but this seems like something that the guys would probably be into some shenanigans down
Well, I think
there.
most people live in Queensland or New South Wales, one of those two provinces.
Okay, I have no clue. I have no idea. Well, this is what's strange is it says, this comes from the president of the UFO Research Queensland. Her name's Cheryl Gottschall, and she actually told the Brisbane Times that there's been a spike in reports over the last few months. She said now...
This Sheila told us that, right?
Sheila said that, yeah.
Okay.
Says we get about 100 calls a year and across Australia, and altogether the UFO research groups get up to 800.
Oh, crikey. What's that in the air?
You're going to so get smashed for that. That's just the reported sightings, and a lot go unreported. Was is going to kill you. And it says they had an interview, a radio interview with 4BC with Tino Pezzamenti, and he's another representative of the Queensland
Tino
UFO
or
group.
Tito?
Tino,
okay.
And he says, this is strange. Listen to this. Now, this gives you a number. Only about 5% of the reports or sightings actually get reported. He says, so you can imagine we get a couple hundred a year. That's only probably 5% of the people that actually find their way to reporting something to us.
I believe that because I think some people see something, they're like, I don't know what that is, and they move on with their life. Other people think, I definitely saw a spaceship or something, but they don't want to come out and say anything because they're afraid of ridicule. So I can totally believe that.
I can. Well, and then here he even goes to, he said he chalks up, he says, I know there's a lot of misidentification. There's a ton of it.
When you saw your ghost of your grandmother, did you go report that to some ghost site?
Never said anything.
Never said nothing about it.
Never said nothing about it, yeah. It says the hosts of the 4BC said that they had heard many sightings are due to a local large event called the Royal Queensland Show, which is AKA, it says ECA. Apparently it's like an exhibition or something. It says it's Queensland's largest annual event. It says it attracts hundreds of thousands of guests from around the world and includes farm animals, food, strength competitions, and a bunch of other events. It takes
so it's
place
like a
in
state
August.
fair.
Yeah, like a state or, a world fair.
And they get a lot of UFO sightings from the state fair?
Apparently there's a lot of them. One of them says right here that it was talking that they saw something that they played off as the lights of during this state fair. Like they were testing the lights for it. I guess they have like big light poles and stuff
I gotcha.
So, he said that that's what a lot, because I guess I'm imagining that this fair, if it's anything like the Texas fair, the state fair, it's a big event. And if they're talking about as big as this Queensland and they come from all over, it must be
even other
thing.
Galaxies, folks.
Yeah, that's right.
They're coming to check it out. That's a really good fair. I'm going to have to make my way down there.
They're coming from other, yeah. Now listen here. It says Pezzamenti says that their organization is not quick to call everything a UFO.
Well, that's good.
And this is what he explains. To be a UFO, it's got to have something unusual, to do something unusual, or look unusual, like in a photograph that he shows. And then it says it has to do like a 90-degree turn, or it flies off faster than any jet you've ever heard, and there's no sonic boom.
You can't just have like a still photo for the guy? That's not good enough?
That's not good enough for this fella. No.
Okay, I got you.
And then he actually has a photograph that he showed, and this photograph is very unique. It's something that it was allegedly taken on Friday, May 23rd in the Woolwyn area. Or maybe this is Woolwyn. Woolwyn? I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm sure Wasnham will tell me. And it's a crazy disc shape, folks. If you go to openminds.tv, it's a neat looking photograph. And they zoom, it doesn't look like anything that resembles even something that we would normally have in the air. It's very strange. But it's strange to me too that it's on the rise there. That they're getting to be more and more and more sightings. And I wonder if that comes from this. Are there more people looking up? Are there more people looking into UFOs? Are there more people paying attention to the skies? Or is it there's more activity of stuff going on around there because of this being, this past month down there in Queensland? Was there more activity of stuff happening? Maybe there was some blimps, balloons. Maybe there's some strange lights. People are reporting seeing that, and they're not used to seeing those things in the air. Or are there little creatures from other galaxies swinging into Queensland?
Maybe.
Pick them up a pint, maybe get them some
Coopers or some Fosters or something.
Man, who knows? It always makes me think of
Tassie Tiger beer. What does that mean? I don't know.
Right. It makes me think of that it's getting to be more and more of a thing to do, that more people are maybe a little bit more aware. More people are more aware of looking up and really kind of studying things. The same as we talked about with cryptozoology. It seems like more and more people are, it's now not a taboo subject. You and I had this discussion a long time ago. We were talking about tattoos and how tattoos used to be taboo. Even when you and I were young, as we were like young children, it was, you see a guy sleeved, it either meant he was a biker or he'd been in prison or he was a sailor or something.
Yeah, something like that. It was not near as common. Now you see soccer moms with tats.
Yeah, now you see people that are tatted
sleeved
up like
and stuff.
Yeah,
it's crazy. It is
all the time. And I wonder, is it our society? Is that what is happening? Is it finally becoming to where it's not as taboo to look up? It's not taboo to do to be into UFOs. It's not. They don't look at you like, just like most people don't want to, like you said, they don't want to be judged. They don't want to be looked at as they're crazy because they think they saw something or they reported seeing a UFO. And I'm just wondering if that's changing, because it feels like it is. It feels like more and more people, due to shows like ours and all these other shows and that everybody's doing, in television shows and radio shows and books and magazines, it's getting to be, there has to be a filter. There's going to be a BS section in there to where people just want to tell you the stories to kind of get a little notoriety. And that's always been that way. Mm-hmm. But it seems like that taboo is kind of breaking. Like it's not as, you're not as a bit of a crazy person if you talk about ghosts and spirits and UFOs and crypto stuff.
You think it's becoming more accepted?
I think because of the information on the internet and the availability to everybody, I believe that it's becoming more accepted.
Well, I definitely think the UFO thing has increased just because the fact that everybody has a phone now and everybody's phone has a really good camera on it. So if you see something, boom. Before, I have a high dollar, 35 millimeter camera, but it's like a whole process. I have to plan the time to get it out. So if you see stuff impromptu, you're not going to have that on you.
That's true.
Unless you're a field photographer. You see the guys with 3 or 4 of them and they're ready to go. But your phone, everybody's got it.
Yeah.
So I think just the increase of that has led to more photographs of UFOs. Now back to the crypto. You're right. There is a lot more shows on TV. And me and my boys, our favorite show is Mountain Monsters or whatever. Have you seen those guys?
Yeah, the boys love it, don't they?
The thing that makes me mad though is, man, I can't wait for these guys to finally catch something, because they constantly build these traps. And every time at the end, the trap gets triggered, man, and there's nothing in it.
Nothing's there.
Yeah. So I really like that show.
It does seem like it just seems like it is more and more acceptable or accepted, this whole thing. Now, that has nothing to do with what's going on in Australia and all the sightings and the spikes, but maybe it is where more people are paying attention. And I would love to go to Australia, because I know that it's a huge place and the populations aren't spread across the area. So I can only imagine looking up what it must look like with very little light pollution. I'm sure you can.
Oh, right, like in the interior? Yeah,
Yes,
because I think most of the population of Australia is on the east coast, I think.
Well, you imagine what it would look like. There's no light pollution. You're talking about, you get to get out in some places. I've been in some places that are really deep into the mountains and at night where there's nothing there, and then one of your cousins, he's actually in Alaska right now. Mm-hmm. And he's even told us stories about coming back from up there, of what he saw in the skies up there, of things that he couldn't tell if they were satellites or what, but he was like, you see things up there that you didn't even know existed in the skies around home. I can only imagine that what they're seeing in Alaska, looking up into the skies, is what it would be like in Australia, because there's no light pollution. It's beautiful. It's clear. There's nothing. You see those pictures of like, some of the mountain areas there in Australia, and then it shows the starry sky above it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is crystal clear and beautiful. Maybe that's another thing, tours. They have the ability to maybe see more than we do just because of the clarity of their sky.
I'd like to see the sky at night from like the middle of the ocean, because, I mean, there's nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, the continent of Australia is huge, but imagine being in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
But there could be a glare off of it. You have a full moon and things glaring back off the ocean. But you'd have to tell me how that is, because I'm not going. I would rather go to the middle of Australia and take my chances out there than the
with
middle of the
inland
ocean.
taipans and dangerous things like that.
Nope. Not going.
If you were to go on a cruise, would you ever go through the Bermuda Triangle?
Well, first of all, I would never go on a cruise. But second of all, yes. If I was going to go on a cruise, I would have to. Yeah, I would have to.
Okay. Well, speaking of the Bermuda Triangle, have you ever heard of the Flight 19 and the 5 missing U.S. Navy planes that went missing?
Yes, I have.
Well, that's what I'm going to talk about right now.
Nice.
In the 5th of December, 1945, 5 Avenger bomber planes took off from a naval base there in Florida. And for some reason, these 5 planes never reappeared. They disappeared. And everybody suspected the Bermuda Triangle. People say there's USOs there, there's UFOs, there's gas that comes up and electrical storms. You've heard all the crazy theories. And so I looked into this story, and what I found was pretty neat. Flight 19, that's what it was called, was a training flight with 5 TBM Avengers or torpedo bombers. And they were led by Commander Charles Taylor. Okay. Each plane was a 3-seater plane, very robust, safe, and it was at that time the U.S. Navy's best bombing planes to destroy enemy submarines. They could carry up to 2,000 pounds of bombing ammunition and ammunitions, and they had a range of about 1,000 miles. Well, other than Taylor, there were 13 others in flight, but all of them were trainees. So Taylor was the only expert. Okay. Now, they left on December 5th, 1945 at about 2:10 p.m., and all 5 Avengers of Flight 19 took off one after another from the Naval Air Station there in Fort Lauderdale on a routine training mission. That's all it was. It was a perfectly clear day. There was no storms. There was nothing.
Just real nice, beautiful weather.
Right, 2:10 in the afternoon, they were taking off. He was the commander. He was, like I said, the only one that was experienced. The other guys were all trainees, and he was kind of leading them so that they could go out there and train, I guess, to kind of oversee what they were doing. But it says their flight plan was to go east out into the ocean about 56 miles up to the Hens and Chicken Shoals to practice bombing. That's what they were doing, practicing their bombing. They were supposed to go further east, 67 miles towards the Bahamas, and then at that point they would turn north and go 73 miles, then turn back and head straight for the naval base back in Florida. Now, why they had to take this crazy route, I don't know that. I know they were practicing bombing. Now, why they had to keep making these other turns, I don't know. Maybe they were just practicing navigation. I have no idea. Well, they never made it back, and that was always the mysteries. What happened to them? Did UFOs take them? Because what was the other story in Australia where the plane went, the Cessna, remember? I see something large above me, or now it's below me. It's always been suspected that it was another one of those things. Like maybe they don't know what happened. Yeah. And this isn't the only time. There's, hundreds of things that have gone missing in the Bermuda Triangle, but this is one of the early ones. And that's what I liked about it. Now, it says the weather on this route was excellent. It was a typical sunny day in Florida, like we talked about. And at 3:30 p.m., Taylor actually sent a message to the control tower. And he said that his compass was malfunctioning, and he thought that they were somewhere around the Florida Keys. Okay, so at 3:30 p.m., he mentioned his compass was kind of messing up. But anyways, no big deal. Because of his compass being messed up, instead of heading towards the east, he actually flew south. Okay, his bearings were off. So he actually was flying farther south, even though he thought he was going east. Now, Mission Control was able to detect this, and they immediately gave him instructions to turn towards the north and fly towards Miami. Okay, that's this. If they were truly off the Florida Keys, that's the instructions they gave him. Now, for whatever reason, things didn't go well. Okay, at 3:45 p.m., Taylor's voice was heard again on the control towers, and this time he sounded worried and confused. He said, "I cannot see land. We seem to be off course." Now, while these days, it goes on to say that, pilots can use modern navigation equipment like GPS. If on your phone, Cam, you have GPS on there. But in 1945, the pilot didn't have any of this technology. He had to rely on a starting point, his speed, his time of flight, the direction he was going based on the compass. And that's the only way to really detect where you were. So much, much more difficult. And you can imagine if you're out in the middle of the ocean, everything looks the same. There's nothing you can even really get a vantage point off of other than what's below you or what's above you.
Yeah, true.
Right? I mean, there's no, and you say it was a cloudy day and then you weren't above the clouds, and it was noon or like this time, 3 o'clock. You couldn't really even tell which was east, west, north, south. It would be really hard.
Yeah, it would be, yeah.
Especially when you're moving. If you're on the ground, you can stick a stick in the ground and watch the shadow, and 10 minutes you'll know the direction. But in the middle of the air, you're not going to be able to do that. Now, here's what I think's funny. A side note: even though Taylor was an experienced pilot, he has a history of getting lost, they say. Okay?
Okay.
So that's a little bizarre. Get this: he was lost 3 times during World War II. And in 2 of such occasions, he had to ditch his plane into the sea and then get rescued.
For real?
Yeah. So the guy leading these 5 trainees, 4 other planes, he has a history of getting lost. So my question is, was he really experiencing some problems with his compass? Or is the guy just really not very good at navigation? Because this is 3 times he's become lost, twice he's had to ditch his plane before because the guy can't figure out how to get home.
I've never even heard of this.
Right? I never have either.
They've never brought that part up.
Let me get more into this. Because when you really get into it, you start to see that I don't think anything bizarre happened. I don't think the Bermuda Triangle had anything to do with it.
Really?
I think this was just a guy who's a knucklehead who doesn't know how to navigate. He got lost. He ran out of fuel and crashed. And he led the other poor guys with him. Because they were trainees. They were relying on this guy's knowledge to lead them where they needed to go.
I got you.
I guess. That's the way that sounds. And for whatever, now that's the mystery part. I've never heard of this part, but the other people always say, well, it's because of the Bermuda Triangle. You hear these electrical storms. You hear people's altimeters being messed up. You hear these compasses being messed up. And it's because of the Bermuda Triangle where all these people have these problems that leads to them crashing. Is that true, or is it just negligence? I don't know. Seems more like negligence to me.
It does.
Anyways, it says by 4:45, it had become quite clear to the men at the naval base that Taylor was hopelessly lost and that he was still trying to go further north and then east again. He was at one point instructed to hand the control over to the students, which apparently he did not. So they're even going, look, this guy is lost. Hey, Taylor, why don't you have Marco over there lead the pack, and he'll get us back home, because maybe they're not having problems with their compasses. So this, too, is he one of those old guys? He don't want no young kids telling him how to do. He's been flying for years. So when they're like, look, Taylor, there's obviously something wrong with your aircraft, I'll take over. And he's like, listen here, son, you just follow me.
Right.
Is it one of those deals? I don't know.
Probably because of just the way the military mindset was back then.
Right.
Yeah.
It says, now that was at 4:45. They told him to hand the controls over to one of the students. Now at 5:50 p.m. Okay, so a little over an hour later, they were able to trace this Flight 19 and all the Avengers on their radar. They apparently were just east of New Smyrna Beach, Florida. By then, it says the communications had become so poor that the information could not be passed on to the lost planes. It was getting dark at this point. The weather just started to become rough, and the Avengers were very low on fuel. So
that would have to be a horrible feeling, wouldn't it? A really terrible feeling. Not to mention that you're lost, but the fact that you're running out of gas.
You're going to have to ditch in the sea is what's going to happen.
Not me, baby.
You don't have a choice.
I'm not getting out of it. I'm just going to take it straight in. I don't care. I'm going to hit it as fast as I can. Yeah. I am not floating in the sea out there in the dark, lost. Everybody's like, where's Cam at? You can look because there'll be a huge defecation stain in the ocean. Yeah. Nope.
Okay, so moving on through the night, it says the officers at the naval station by 7:27 decided to send out 2 Martin Mariner planes to go look for these other guys. Now, these Martin Mariner planes are the ones that looks like an airplane that looks like the bottom of it kind of looks like a boat.
Okay.
So you can land these things in the sea.
I got you. Nice.
Whatever. They sent 2 of those out. Now, One of the strange parts is one of those ended up missing. They never found it. But is it because of the storm? I mean, I don't know, because they said the weather was getting rough. Now, the last transmission from Flight 19 was heard at 7:04 p.m. Now, the search continued throughout the night, all the next day. There was never a sign of the Avengers found. They searched a giant zone, and they said over the course of the next 5 days, they searched 250,000 square miles of the Atlantic Ocean. And they literally combed everything they could with the Coast Guards, Navy ships, aircraft. There was never any trace of any oil leakage. There was never a sighting of a life raft, a fire, or wreckage of any sort. They never found it. It was kind of like the missing Malaysia aircraft that we talked about earlier. They've never found any sightings of it. Now, that's where the mystery left. I mean, from 1945, it was always a mystery. What happened? Was it the Bermuda Triangle that interfered with all this? Now, in 1986, though, there was some wreckage found off the coast of Florida while a search was going on for the Space Shuttle Challenger. Remember when that blew up?
Mm-hmm.
When they were searching for pieces of that, they found another wreck. They found the wreck of an airplane. And an ocean archaeologist named John Meyer in 1990 found this wrecked plane, and he was convinced that it was one of the Flight 19 planes, but he could not provide definite evidence. In 1991, salvaging ship found the wrecks of 5 Avenger planes 600 feet below at the ocean bottom off the coast of Florida. But after examination, it was confirmed that they were not Flight 19 planes. So the incident continued to be a mystery.
I got you.
Now, 2 men, John Meyer, like we talked about earlier, and Andy Morocco, have been trying to trace the route of this Flight 19 Avenger bomber planes and identify the crash site for over 25 years. And based on several circumstantial evidences, they say that the wreck of a torpedo bomber that was discovered in 1989 in the Everglades in Broward County was that of Charles Taylor's plane.
In the Everglades.
In the Everglades. Right. He was the commander of that flight. They think they found his plane. They collected the U.S. Navy's 500-page report about Flight 19 and figured out that the aircraft carrier, the USS Solomon, which was offshore from Daytona Beach, Florida, was actually able to pick up radar signals of a few unidentified airplanes around 7 p.m. on that same day. And they were all flying north over Florida. The planes were flying at an altitude of about 4,000 feet and at a speed of 135 miles an hour. This is from the radar report to this other ship.
Okay.
And they took a turn southeast. Based on speed, time, and flight position, Meyer and this Morocco calculated that it was quite possible that one of the planes would have to have crashed near where this torpedo bomber wreckage was found in 1989. They also looked closely at a file picture of the cockpit of the torpedo bomber found in 1989 and determined that it was that of a TBM-3 Avenger plane, identical to the same type of plane that Taylor was flying. They also concluded from Navy archives and U.S. Navy does not have any, the U.S. Navy's records don't show any TBM-3 Avenger plane crashing between 1944 and 1952 other than Flight 19, which went missing in 1945. So they think this wreck in the Everglades probably is that Flight 19 crashed airplane. They think Charles Taylor crashed in the Everglades. Now, they also found in the wreckage of the 1989 that they found of this crash plane, they found a shoe, and the shoe was like a size 11. And they said Charles Taylor was 6 foot 1 inches tall, so he could very easily have a size 11 foot. So that's the mystery. You know, conspiracy theorists love the Bermuda Triangle. They love all these crazy UFO stories, other dimensions, solar storms. You've heard it all. Man, after getting into it, I think the guy was just terrible, piss poor, terrible at navigation.
Direction, yeah.
Got lost, ran out of fuel, and I think all 5 planes crashed. I think it killed them all. That's what I think happened.
They have to do what they do. They stay in formation. They follow in. Mm-hmm. Maybe there was, but how come they lost radio contact with all of them?
I don't know. It's a mystery still. I don't know.
Did something could it be, instead of it, maybe it's not black and white, like we said, maybe it doesn't have to be an and or. Maybe it's a little bit of both. Maybe they did encounter something.
Maybe.
That actually fried out their ability.
Maybe they went into another dimension.
And then when they run out of gas, they dropped whatever.
Who knows?
Man, that's a difficult subject. Really,
It seems more likely, though, that they just crashed, right? I mean, that's the thing about this Malaysian airplane. I know there's all kinds of theories. I don't know why they lost contact with it. I don't know why they've never been able to find it. But I think the thing probably just crashed.
Well, the Flight 19 does make more sense that they just became lost,
especially in 1945.
Run out of gas and crashed. But my only question still is, why did they not ever show them on radar, and why did they lose radio contact with every one of them?
Well, right. And was all 5 of the aircraft's compasses malfunctioning? It doesn't say that. Just Taylor says that his was.
Because if it come down to, look, I'm either going to get court-martialed or I'm going to break off my formation because I know which way they're going to go, I would be arguing with all the guys in my unit being like, look, this guy's not doing the right thing. It's this way.
Cam,
we're going the wrong
way. You
way.
never leave your wingman.
You never leave your wingman. That is true. You never leave your wingman. Well, and also, too, if the radios were malfunctioned and all the compasses, let's say, were all malfunctioned, then they couldn't even contact with each other.
That's right. Well, that fits right back in the Bermuda Triangle theory.
You're just following the leader.
Does the Bermuda Triangle interfere with your electronics and avionics? And that's what it is. I don't know.
Ley lines? Yeah, is there ley lines that's caused it? Magnetic ley lines that's caused everything to... I don't know. Man, that right there added more questions than answers, just you talking about that. And the fact that I've never heard that. I've never heard anybody bring up the fact that they have found... They always talk about all the wreckage they found in the ocean. They're like, they didn't bring up the wreckage they found in the Everglades.
Right, yeah.
They don't talk anything
Apparently
about that.
Apparently they find a lot of planes in the Everglades. I mean, all the dope smuggling and stuff, there's a lot of planes that are just wrecked.
Dude's just overweighted and run out of gas or what?
I guess. I mean, who knows?
Can't keep it flying and just take it in.
I think you'd be shocked at the amount of boats and aircraft that are constantly flying in and out of and leaving Florida.
Probably so, yeah, probably so. Man, that is interesting. Now you got me really... I'm going to have to go do some more reading on it because I'm just like, man, why isn't that out there?
I don't know.
That's strange. That's very strange.
I'll put it in the show notes, all links to all these articles about the missing Flight 19 and all those bombers that went missing.
Man, that's a cool story. That's a real cool story. Hey, Philly, I was looking into some stories after we did last week's show when you were talking about the humanoids and things like that. And I had just an idea. Like I said, it just kind of spun past me. I was always thinking about the evil things that people see and, kind of the, not so much humanoids, but more like a demonic style entity.
Oh, okay. You're talking about on the Elite show.
Yeah.
Humanoids. Okay.
And I'm thinking of more along the, like I said, these demonic entities and things. And I always said I wasn't going to go down that path. I'm going to look into like some strange exorcisms and things. And I've got some stuff in the works that I've been working and doing a lot of research on it, but I came across a blog, and the name of the blog is reallifedemon-encounters.blogspot.com. Now, folks, I don't know if this is 100% legit. If these are just, made up stories or what they are, but it actually says that these are true stories from Gothenburg, Sweden, in between 1989 and the present. And it's verified by observation and validated by a psychiatrist, Dr. C. Eck. And like I said, I've always wondered, you always wonder like, let's see what's going on. Is there evilness out there, because we're used to seeing the shadow man and things, and you don't really know what it is. Some of these are really creepy, and I'm going to read a few of the stories that are on here.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to sleep. See, physical crypto animals, I think, are cool. They don't freak me out as bad as, like, demons, because, they just come in your room. There's no stopping them.
Well, and that's
you know what I mean? If I don't want to see Sasquatch, like I've always said, you just don't go in the woods. That's right, yeah.
Right? I don't have to look up because I want to see you.
Oh, boy. Please don't. Are they truly terrifying?
Yeah, they're pretty unsettling. Like this one here took place in 1981, and it says the very first demon that I ever identified as such was back in 1989. It says I was soaking wet from the rain, having walked 5 blocks to get to a bus stop. It had been raining all day, and the street was turning into a lake, and there were no buses in sight. Inside the small shelter of the bus stop sat a woman of Semitic heritage, he says. This was a rather uncommon sight in Gothenburg at the time, since immigration in these days mostly had come out of the Balkans, Chile, or nearby Finland. Turks were sometimes seen, and I first took her for being one of them. As I asked her for the time, she answered me in a peculiar, non-human voice.
What?
And tried to hide her face with her scarf. That was when I noticed that something was up about her. Everyone I had met that day had been soaking wet, but she was all dry. How had she been able to enter this bus stop without getting wet? She had no umbrella with her. Then I saw what I at first believed was a gross outgrowth on her back. At first, I just thought that she was a hunchback, but then I could see her big black wings folded and tucked away, not completely hidden by her coat. At this time, I was not yet on the lookout for demons. I was not well read in the literature, and I did not carry a camera. I believe I stared at her for several minutes before the spell finally broke. Her wings were no longer visible, but I had to make sure. I pulled at her clothes and exposed one of her blackened breasts. I could tell it was a demon for sure. I froze up like a man in the face of death. Then I tried to fend her off as she started screaming, trying to pull her clothes back on, as an innocent woman would. I then ran like I had never run before. I ran like hell, like a person literally running for his life. When I finally stopped, I was halfway across town. It took me a long time to get over what I had seen, and I tried to rationalize it. Perhaps perhaps I had been tired. Perhaps there had been some strange optical illusion, or perhaps maybe the woman was on her way to a masquerade. Did someone slip me something? Was I having a flashback? He said, I did my share of drugs when I was very younger, but I know what I saw. Says, as I stood there in the bus shelter, I never even came up with the idea to ask the demon for its name. To this day, I still do not know it, even though I have read just about anything and everything available on the topic of demonology and lists of demons known to man. I'm quite certain it actually was a demon previously unknown, but that it has known relations. Says, in any case, the female demon was certainly dangerous, but without ever knowing its true identity, her death toll would be pure guesswork. As a fallen angel, her primary work would not lie in death either, but in misery and in the affairs of men and women. Now that story, when I first read it, I'm like, well, what are you doing tugging on her clothes?
Yeah, you're a rapist.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
who's
just a
the demon?
psycho. I mean, can you just molest women in public and go, well, I thought she was a demon?
Yeah.
We'd be like, what?
Exactly. That's
You'd
the
be
first.
locked up.
Yeah. Now, is it creepy? Yeah, that's a creepy story. But I'm like, dude, what are you doing tugging on her clothes, man? You know what I'm saying? What the heck is
Were there not
going
any other
on?
people around?
The way he's telling the story, there was nobody else around. And then this one comes from 1990. All right, same character wrote this, and it says, the name of this one he titled, He Who Cannot Be Named.
Ooh.
So maybe it goes back into this. Now listen to this. A couple of months after my encounter with the fallen angel, I was still shaky and suffering from nervous fits. I talked to friends about it, but seeing as they laughed it off and tended not to believe me, I started to feel reluctant about sharing. Still, I needed to get the experience off my chest. One evening, I was at a party in the industrial areas of the vast inland Hasgiren, just north of Gothenburg, across from the water of Gotha Alv. I had only a few beers and no drugs whatsoever that night. Now, I like how he keeps referring back to I did drugs in the past, but I'm not having them now. Okay? Now, listen to this. Now, here we go. Now, this gets into this whole thing. Look, I'm not saying people don't see them because I firmly believe they're there, but I want you to listen to this story. I remember watching a satanic rock band on the stage, thinking that they were a sham, probably oblivious to the really dark aspects of our existence, of which I had just recently become so acutely aware. During the gig, I lost contact with the people I came with. And says Jonas, being such a bore, had probably split already, and Sophie and Carl had probably snuck off somewhere. Said, after the gig, I went outside the building and sat down, leaning against the wall next to two guys. There were some other people hanging around outside, smoking and drinking and just talking. After a while, one of the two guys next to me stood up and went back inside. As I turned to the other, asking him for a smoke, I noticed that his eyes were pitch black, like two empty holes. It was not just a case of dilated pupils. There was actually no iris and no sclera. It was like nothingness. My heart froze and I felt a strong fear in my stomach as I took the offered cigarette and lit it. Trying to compose myself and not freak out from fear, I inhaled and sat still, trying to act casual. He took out a blade well over 20 centimeters and started to pick his fingernails with it, and then he spoke in a low voice. I killed a man today, he said. I said nothing for a while, keeping track of the people around us, hoping they wouldn't leave. Normally, I would have thought such a statement odd, being the result of some foolish need to boast and impress, but I felt instantly He was telling the truth. I finally managed to speak. Why? He took a deep drag on his cigarettes. On his cigarette, it says, for the fun of it, he said and grinned. Although he looked young, in his late teens or early 20s like myself, he lacked several teeth, and there was something really ancient, almost archaic about him. So what's your name, I asked, almost immediately regretting this, since he had just confessed to a murder. I was trying to make small talk, trying to give him the impression that I was relaxed. He looked at me with those creepy eyes. They call me he who cannot be named, he said. But I have other names. Are you a demon, I asked. He then confirmed this and showed me his tattoos, one of which depicted the demonic name, and several others with ghastly images of hell. This is when I first came to learn about some rules about demons and interactions with demons, like the fact that simply asking demons flat out if they are demons sometimes is actually a good strategy. Many demons appreciate you recognizing them, especially the stronger ones, the ones that have nothing to fear from you. Some of them also like to boast and tell you about their exploits. Right?
I think I dated a demon one time. She'd never copped to it, though.
Yes. He says, I told him about the experience I had with the woman at the bus stop, the demon with the black folded wings under her clothes. He gave me a curious look and then told me that I had been lucky to escape with my life. He says, I'm not going to kill you because I'm not hungry right now. He said, you want to know about evil, do you? Our conversation was interrupted by the appearance of a girl who sat down with us. She seemed to know the demon and kept calling him Henrik. I could tell that she was not a demon herself, but just an ordinary human. The demon next to me explained to her that I had recognized him as being a demon and that I was okay. She nodded and told me that I was very perceptive, but that I was to tell no one. Yes, it's best if you don't. The consequences are grave, the demon added. We didn't talk much after that. They left, and I took off home. Now, look, I was trying to do serious research, really trying to dig into these stories of these, and this is what I come across. I'm not saying that this dude is crazy.
Could you have context? I mean, they're at a concert.
Well,
and a concert, by the way, that's a satanic rock band. It seems to me that, I don't know, I've never been, but I could imagine if people that go to watch satanic rock concerts probably dress a little goth, probably, are a little out there. And so I can imagine somebody with context, and meeting somebody who killed somebody, I could totally see them at a satanic rock band concert. I mean, it's not like he was at the jump rope for heart benefit, and a guy had black eyes told him that. You know what I mean? So I'm like, is it really just that, or is the guys just screwing around?
Well, I'll tell you this. Like I said, I was really looking to get into some serious encounters with more of these demonic entities, or more of these darker sides of what's out there. Because like we've always said, there's a balance. There's a checks and balances. As much as I like the light and the fairies and all this that you see, there has to be a darker side of it. And you kind of have to be aware of both sides.
Right.
So you know what you're dealing with. And when I found this, I thought, man, okay, this is a privately owned little blog. This might be something worth reading. You know what I mean? I read those two stories, and then I was like, the dude sounds like he's slipping. I mean, instantly. The guy, I mean, I don't buy the first story. First, you're tugging on the clothes. You're grabbing at her clothes and all this stuff. You're like, sounds like I'm not saying you're not seeing something, but really that's your first inkling is, you're just going to tear her shirt off.
Well, and also the guy admits to drug use.
Yep.
And he goes to satanic rock concerts. I mean,
exactly.
Just what kind of person is this?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you, because here's the third story, and I'm not even going to get into the third story. I'm just going to read you the first sentence of the very first story.
Okay, lay it on me.
Since my incarceration in a mental ward in 1990, I had talks with a therapist named Marie once a week. That's where I stopped it. I'm going through all these stories, and I'm
like,
looking.
This is fascinating.
Yeah, I'm like, this guy. Is he onto something? Because I keep thinking of that old movie Constantine.
Yeah,
with Keanu Reeves. Yeah,
right.
And I kept thinking of that. I'm like, is he seeing these? He sees both sides. The both, and nobody else sees it. So and then I get into that, and I'm like, wait a second,
this guy's crazy.
This guy's nuts.
Right.
This guy just admitted to being nuts. I mean, you're talking about. He said in 1990. Well, in 1989 and early 90. Is when
all this happened.
When he grabbed that woman and he pulled at her clothes, and when he saw this crazy guy, and he said he felt ill and all this stuff. I'm like, wait a minute. this is starting to make sense. And then that's allegedly whenever he met this Dr. Eck and all this, who would said this doctor confirmed the truth about their sightings, and that he wasn't delusional, and that was, like I said, was admitted for 2 months in this mental institution and all this. I'm like, wait a minute. You found somebody. Did they really tell you, oh no, you're not crazy? Or were they trying to help you get out of your whatever you were in?
Yeah.
And then again too, is it the demons that did it to him, or is he really
that's
crazy?
Also another thing you could say, right?
I don't know. Like I said,
he's normal. The demons are possessing him, right? I don't know.
Yeah. I really enjoyed the stories that I had read, but when I found this, I'm like, I got to share this, because this is one of those things that can be twisted around and turned around, like we talked about with a lot of these stories. You have to really dig and look into these stories before you commit to them. Because, it's one of those things. I'm like, obviously, this guy that wrote all these is having some troubles. Obviously, there's some problems there. There's somebody that's not structurally sound. Not every story, though, is that way.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of them. Like I said, I've been doing a lot of research on skinwalkers and stickmen from the Native American folklore.
Ooh.
And I've got a lot of stuff I've found about those. Yeah. So I'm going to be bringing that up on upcoming shows. But there's a lot of these stories that people, the Native Americans, tell that you could tell they don't want to be involved in this.
Right.
They don't want to even talk about it because they feel it's going to bring something bad. And I believe that there's, like I said, there's two sides. There's two balances of these stories to add these validity to it. And you kind of look at, like we've always said, somebody that wants to post something, it's one thing to troll somebody, give somebody a hard time. It's a whole nother thing to post them and just be, I'm just telling you the story and I'm bailing out. That's not it. Whereas this blog here, I'm like, I don't even know what I found, man. It's just total
You found
madness.
The ramblings of a madman is what you found.
That's exactly what it was. So, folks, like I said, keep your guard up when you read some of those. Don't let somebody tell you something. You kind of want to do a little your own research and all that. Like I said, I was looking into some of this, and I have found some really cool, interesting things with exorcisms and things like that. But I'm like, you know what? When I came across this and read it, I'm like, this is newsworthy. This is worth sharing, because whoever this fellow was is a little bit out there. And then, of course, you found that last little bit, and I'm like, yep, a little bit out there.
Well, thank you for sharing that anyways. But that just about does it for this episode, folks. So don't forget, we have an elite show if you're not an elitist. And if you are not an elitist, I'm going to give you a little sneak preview of what we talked about last week, which was the Van Meter visitor.
There you go.
Check this out. On the morning of October 3rd, a group of men working a late-night factory shift in the vicinity heard strange sounds coming from the mine shaft, and then saw not one, but two creatures exit the shaft, their lights ablaze. The pair of them, slightly smaller than the other, took wing and sailed off into the moonlit night. The sight galvanized the factory shift eyewitnesses as the whole town of Van Meter woke up and turned up their electric lights. Okay, so see, that's the kind of stuff you're going to be listening to if you join Elite. Now, like we've told you before, for those that aren't elitist, the Elite show is just like the normal show. If you like the Expanded Perspectives normal show, then you're going to like Elite. It's only $5 a month. You go to the website, sign up. It's really easy. You can go to the top right corner of the website, and you'll see a little tab there to click to subscribe. So Don't forget, we have a phone number, Cam.
It's 817-945-3828. Holler at us. Hit us up. Holler at your boy. If you got anything you want to drop us a line, anything you want to just comment on anything, if you want to tell us how much you like the show or you like the Elite show and whatnot, we'll play you on the air. So, yeah, just everybody.
If you got any cool stories or demon stories of your own, you can email the show, expandedperspectives@yahoo.com.
Yeah, if you got any wild demon stories or even, and they don't have to be like real demon stories, if they just have a little bit darker side of it, you can email them. If you don't feel like emailing them, you want to call it in. We'll listen to it, and we don't have to play it on air if you don't want to play it. We'll just write it all up or something like that, or discuss it. But yeah, I'd love to hear from you for sure.
Right on. Well, everybody have a good week this week. Stay out of trouble. Don't work too hard.
That's right.
And we will see those of you that are on Elite. We'll talk to you all on Thursday.
For everybody else, we'll catch up with you Monday. Everybody be careful.
Peace.